Mr. Chancellor, Mr. President, honored guests, graduates, ladies and gentlemen, the highest honor the Senate of a university can confer upon an individual is an honorary doctorate. At the University of Manitoba, the criteria include distinguished achievement in scholarship, the arts, or public service. Our honorary graduate this morning is Phyllis Yaffe. Phyllis Yaffe is awarded an Honorary Doctor of Laws in recognition of her exceptional business acumen and for trailblazing paths for other women to follow into the world of publishing and media. This former librarian, who may on occasion have asked patrons to keep it quiet, has made a lot of noise in commercial entertainment. Ms. Yaffe was born in Winnipeg and began working as a librarian in the Winnipeg Public Library in 1969. Her love of books led her, after she earned a B.A. from the University of Manitoba, to receive a Bachelor of Library Science degree from the University of Alberta, and then a Master of Library Science from the University of Toronto. In the 1970s, she was a librarian at Seneca College in Toronto, and later became the executive director of the Canadian Children's Book Centre. In 1980, the Association of Canadian Publishers appointed Ms. Yaffe its executive director. 5 years later, she became vice president of marketing for the children's magazine Owl, a position she held until 1993, when she was approached by Alliance. They wanted her to help them expand. She did, and they did. By 1995, Ms. Yaffe was president of Showcase Television, and she helped them expand in 1996 with the successful licensing of History Television. In 1999, she became president and CEO of Alliance Atlantis Broadcasting, and by 2001, she was appointed to the newly created position of Chief Executive Officer of Alliance Atlantis Communications. She was responsible for overseeing the company's worldwide operations, including its specialty channels, its international television distribution business, and the CSI franchise. She is also credited for bringing such personalities as Mike Holmes, Christine Cushing, and my personal favorite, the Trailer Park Boys, to Canadian television. In 1999, Canadian Women in Communications presented her with the award for Woman of the Year. The very next year, she received the Lifetime Achievement Award from Women in Film and Television. And in 2006, she was named one of Canada's 100 most powerful women by the Women's Executive Network. Ms. Yaffe is chairperson of Women Against Multiple Sclerosis, and she has sat on the World Wildlife Fund Board, the Board of Trustees of the Ontario Science Centre, and on the United Way of Greater Toronto's 2007 Campaign Cabinet. She is currently the chair of the Board of Directors of Cineplex Entertainment and the lead director at Torstar Corporation, as well as a member of the Board of Directors of Astral Media Incorporated and Lionsgate Entertainment. Today, she receives an Honorary Doctor of Laws from the University of Manitoba, a premier academic institution that celebrates Ms. Yaffe's trend-setting spirit and her love of Canadian culture and the arts. Mr. Chancellor, it is a great honor for me to ask on behalf of the Senate of the University of Manitoba that you confer upon Phyllis Yaffe the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa.
By virtue of the authority vested in me as Chancellor of this university, I admit you to the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, with all the rights and privileges thereto appertaining. Congratulations, Dr. Yaffe.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for those lovely words, Mr. Chancellor, Mr. President, honored guests, but most importantly, graduates. As you heard, I started my life here in Winnipeg, but I now live in Toronto, where I have one of the privileges I have is chairing the Board of Governors of Ryerson University. So I get the privilege of attending convocations at Ryerson every year. And so when I do get a chance to hear a considerable number of convocation addresses. So I was a little more than just a little intimidated by the task of writing this speech. I wondered, how should I express my sense of excitement for you graduates for the future? And what practical advice should I give you that might help you as you enter the next phase of your lives? And how best will I be able to express my very special feeling about this university and what it meant to me? For it was here that I had some exceptional learning experiences. The one that made the biggest difference in my life was the Shakespeare Seminar I took from Professor Jack Woodbury. I still have the notes from that class. Professor Woodbury taught me how to read books for images, for themes, for construction in writing, as well as for story. He taught me how to appreciate all of a book, not just its plot. And because he was so compelling, I went to him for advice on what books I should read to be well read. He gave me a list which I devoured. I think he probably never thought about it again, but I still do. I wish I had kept that list too. I also remember some inspirational words from Professor Tom Peterson, my political science professor. He urged us to read the difficult books, the daunting ones, because university was the time when we had the luxury to do that. He pointed out that we may never have that again, so we should make the most of it. Force ourselves to explore ideas, even if they were uncomfortable. It was a very good suggestion. I'm sure there were other great moments here as well, but these stick out as informative for my whole life. And of course, there was graduation. I do remember how proud my parents were of my graduating, as my sister had done before me. I can only imagine how proud today would have made them. You see, my parents wanted to make sure both my sister and I had university education, since neither of them did. They wanted to make sure we had every benefit they could offer us to start our lives. We never really discussed it, but I know they just assumed we would go to university right after high school, and it would be this one. We never considered leaving home to go to school as so many people do today, not only because we couldn't afford it, but because we really didn't know any other institutions. My friends and I followed the well-worn path of forming a carpool, mostly by borrowing our parents' cars and carpooling across the city. Classes started at 8:30, I don't know if they still do, so to make sure on icy winter days that we got here on time, the driver of the day would get up around 6, let the engine run for a good 20 minutes, and start the neighborhood trek of picking up our fellow travelers. We would have to go slowly for the first while till the square tires rounded out a bit, and then head across the city with the full car. The most sought-after university position to us was not academic. It was a good parking spot in a lot close to University College. Not an easy thing to get. I have to assume most of that hasn't changed. So although we didn't actually choose University of Manitoba, rather it chose us, we felt destined to attend it, and when the weather improved, we felt lucky to be here. This institution set me on a path I followed my whole career. I loved books and reading, but I had no idea how I would make a career out of that. My father told me to go to City Hall to get my first job, so I did the day after graduation. That would be tomorrow for you. No doubt it was an easier time to start a career. I was given an interview that day at the Winnipeg Public Library, and I started the next day as a library assistant. I worked there for 2 years, and then I got my Bachelor of Library Science from the University of Alberta. I came back to the Winnipeg Public Library, and I ran a small branch library. I was ambitious and determined to have a career, not just a job. So somehow, the chief librarian of the Winnipeg Public Library noticed me and a colleague of mine, Barbara Clubb, and asked us to help him organize the National Conference of Librarians. We were young and energetic and thrilled to have a chance to make our mark. We tackled this opportunity with determination, but no skill or preparedness. We were novices, but I think it was our naivete that made the event a success and made us stand out from the crowd. To quote Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook, you could say, we leaned in. We didn't hold back. We didn't make excuses. We jumped in, and for both of us, it propelled us into careers that were successful and that we loved. I moved to Toronto shortly after that and only worked in libraries for a few more years, but I did continue to take on challenges. I was asked to leave my secure library job to start an organization called the Children's Book Centre. It had a 6-month grant from the Canada Council, but nobody knew if it would be renewed or what would come of it. But I did it, and it led me to the rest of my career in cultural industries, in book publishing, magazines, feature films, and finally broadcasting. No doubt, if I had not taken the opportunity of the Children's Book Centre, the career I enjoyed so much would not have happened. So let me use this as my piece of practical advice. Take risks. Don't be afraid. Now is the best time in your life to take risks. Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, is particularly focused on women and their lack of risk-taking. She has, of course, had a stellar career, but she tells the story of how even she was reluctant to take on opportunities that were given to her. And as a boss, she tells stories of offering women promotions and having them defer because they were afraid they didn't have the skills or were thinking of having a family sometime in the future. Let me add my admonition to hers here, especially for the women in the audience. Jump in when asked. It may mean learning on the job, doing things you're not prepared for, or working longer and harder than you thought you would, but it will be rewarding later on. Sitting back, waiting for the perfect moment to say yes, will just never happen. Life doesn't go that way. And for all the graduates today, remember, standing out in a crowd for good reasons is the best way to be given the chance to prove yourself. Let your boss know you want to move up, you want more responsibility, and you think you can do the job. Share your enthusiasm for the work, show your skills when you can, and say yes when you're asked to do something special. You will make your mark and be remembered. And as for the daunting future before you, I'm sure we've all heard enough about the difficulty of starting a career today, the lack of jobs, the unpaid internships, the graduates who are underemployed. But I'm here to say those fears are overrated. 90% of university graduates across Canada still find employment within 6 months of graduation, and their unemployment rate is the lowest of any group in the country. And 84% find work in their chosen fields as quickly. University graduates earn over $1 million more than those without post-secondary education over a lifetime. And if you're thinking of further education, of course, this is a prerequisite. So celebrate your accomplishments today, and remember, you've just made the best investment you can make in yourself. My career took me a long way away from Winnipeg in some ways, but not very far from the values and the lessons I learned here. I'm a true baby boomer whose values were formed by my family and by the times. I was a part of what might have been the first cohort to be called Radiator Radicals at University College. We spent countless hours on those radiators, debating the morality of the Vietnam War, the sexual revolution, the imperial aggression of the United States, the just society of Pierre Trudeau, which we thought was just for the rich. But I don't remember a single conversation about what we were going to do with our lives when we graduated. We certainly weren't going to go into business. We couldn't conceive of being entrepreneurs and starting our own business. We were, however, going to change the world for the better. Well, I'm not sure we all did manage to do that, but I do know that most of us tried. Today, you have the opportunity to choose so many different paths than we did. Let me encourage you to consider them all. Maybe you should start your own business, create your own product, invent something we need or we want. After all, you're likely to have many different careers in your lifetime. I know I did. Why not take the big risks now when you have plenty of time to start over if you need to? So let me leave you with this idea. You are young and smart and capable. Take risks, start something, stand out, be recognized. Have fun while you do it, but do it. Lean any direction you want, but lean. Take charge of your life, and I can promise you it will be worth it. Thank you.